session. City Clerk. Speak, please proceed to the back of the room, and city staff will issue you a number card. I would like to call the order the regular city council meeting closed session. The time is 5:33. I will now take the roll call. Councilwoman Fermetta is excused. She called in and will not be able to join us today. Councilmember Ortiz.
Present.
Councilmember Pemberton.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Sosa.
Present.
And Mayor Trujillo, I am present. Now is the time for public comment. I remind speakers that this public comment period is reserved for comments about the items listed under the closed session agenda. There's an opportunity later in the meeting for general public comment. This is a business meeting and we have business to attend to in the next hour. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the city council regarding closed sessions. I would like to remind members of the audience that the city's meeting rules contained in the Downey Municipal Code prohibit any conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Members of the audience and speakers who violate these rules and cause a disruption will receive 1 warning and then may be removed from the meeting. Violations of the rules of decorum for council meetings may also result in an administrative fine under the Municipal Code or citation for a misdemeanor under Penal Code Section 403. City Clerk Duarte, did we receive any written public comment regarding closed session items to be incorporated into the record?
We did not, Mayor.
Do we have any speakers that have taken a number?
We don't have any, Mayor.
Great. Is there a motion and a second to close public comment? Motion.
So moved.
Pemberton, second. Ortiz, so ordered by the mayor. The city council will now recess to a closed session under the following authorities. Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator James McQueen, Director of Human Resources, regarding direction for labor negotiations with Downey City Employees Association's maintenance unit. Number 2, Government Code Section 54956.95, a liability claim, workers' compensation claim, claimant Sean Youngblood, claim number 23-169860, agency claimed against City of Downey. Number 3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Sections 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 2, and subsection E, subsection 3. Attached letters from Don Diaz, General Counsel for Ojos Locos Sports Cantina, dated December 21, 2023, and February the 5th of 2024, also available for public inspection at the city clerk's office located at 11111 Brookshire Avenue during normal business hours. Number 4, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 4, one potential case. Item number 5, Government Code Section 54957, subsection B, Public Employee Appointment, Title Economic Development Director. And item number 6, Government Code Section 54957, subsection B, subsection 1, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Title City Attorney. We will now recess to closed session. The time is 5:36. I will now reconvene the regular council meeting closed session. City Attorney Funk, will you please report the closed session action?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public. In tonight's closed session, the City Council addressed each of the items agendized on closed session. There was no reportable action from the items tonight. And that is the conclusion of my report.
Thank you. Before we begin the regular city council meeting, open session, I would like to remind members of the audience that anyone wishing to speak during public comment must obtain a number card from the city clerk. If you did not obtain a number and wish to speak, please proceed to the back of the room and city staff will issue you a number card. Lining up during public comment will not be permitted, and each speaker should remain in their seat until their number is called. The time clock will begin when you begin your comments. I will now call to order the regular city council meeting open session. The time is 6:51 p.m. City Clerk Duarte, will you please take the roll?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Frometa is absent. Councilmember Ortiz.
Present.
Councilmember Pemberton.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Sosa.
Present.
And Mayor Trujillo.
Here. At this time, we ask that Pastor Glenn Kravik from Calvary Chapel, Downey, please come forward to lead us in the invocation. If you would all please stand.
Before I pray, I'd like to just read, this goes to the city council and to each and every one of us out here too, we need this. But it says, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion, to the wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. And that's why you're here, and that's why these people are here, for that wise counsel. In the midst of many counselors, there's wisdom, isn't there? All right, so God bless you guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. It's a privilege. And Father, we come to you now, and we ask that you would take hold of this ministry. It's a ministry, Lord God, to our city. And I pray for each one of these city council members, to the police chief, the fire chief, each and every person that deals with this city, Lord God. We have a great city. We need wise leadership. So Father, speak to each and every person here in the audience, and Lord God, all the city councilmen. And Father, we just ask now, guide us, lead us, and watch over this meeting. We ask that in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. You guys
Thank
did
you,
good.
Pastor Glenn Kravik from, again, the Calvary Chapel of Downey. Thank you for that. And now, for our flag salute to lead us, we ask that Boy Scout Troop 441 please come forward.
Audience, please join me in pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Boy Scout Troop 441. Please take a seat. Now's the time for city council member announcements, requests for future agenda items, and conference meeting reports. I'll start to my right with Mayor Pro Tem Hector Sosa from the 2nd District.
Thank you, Mayor Trujillo. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone here tonight. I'll keep my comments brief. I did attend several events, but I just wanted to highlight this past weekend. I did get to attend the opening day ceremonies for both Downey Ponytail and West Downey Little League. It's great to see baseball and softball back in action. And I have to say that the field and the whole makeup at Stauffer Middle School for West Downey looks amazing. And my hat's off to all the volunteers, board members who put in dozens of hours in getting that field ready. So that'll conclude my comments. I'll keep them short. Thank you.
Thank you. From the 3rd District, Councilwoman Pemberton.
Well, then I'll take some of your time. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. March is Women's History Month, and we started it off with an outstanding event. The Downey Chamber of Commerce put on the Women's Empowerment Luncheon, which was sold out, and there were many successful business women as speakers and that were speaking to us. Betty Porto was the keynote speaker, and she shared her family struggles of living in Cuba, immigrating to the U.S., and the beginning of Portos, which was really interesting, with cakes on their twin beds, and then basically her mother finding the store that they eventually had their first store and moved here. Downey has made their store the #1 in sales. I wonder why. We see the lines, right? Downey, Downey thanks you for coming, Betty and Portos. And thank you, Michael Calvert and the Downey Chamber of Commerce and the committee for doing this event. And as my colleague here, Pro Tem Hector Sosa said, we attended the softball games. All of us were there. We were all 5 of us at Downey Ponytail and West Little League. And Northwest Little League had a rain out. They had theirs on Sunday the prior week. So we are ready for spring season. Also attended the Neighborhood Watch Block Captains meeting. Many of us did. With the police department, this was hosted, Stephanie Arroyo contacted all the Neighborhood Watch block captains, and they talked about preventative measures for crime. If you see something, always call PD. Don't make a decision. Residents had a number of questions. There were about 50 people there. It was really educational, and it was an excellent program. And if you want to start a watch program, a neighborhood watch block in your street, call Stephanie. Here's her number, 562-904-2374. She's located in the police department. I've helped several residents with code enforcement or public work issues, so I want to thank both Public Works and Code Enforcement for getting a lot of these done. Residents want to see things done that pertain to them, to see the issues right away. I call this the low-hanging fruit. And residents are asking for more patrolling down streets, just the visibility of the patrol cars. I did see a unit one afternoon on the island that was coming through, nothing of concern, but they were out there. So I'm glad to see that. I know we are limited, but if possible, I'd like to increase patrolling in the outlying areas of our city, give visibility to residents, and also to deter potential crime. We attended the good meeting, things out of Downey. The graffiti department said that they cleared 32,000 square feet of graffiti. That's why our city keeps so clean. And I'm looking forward to perhaps getting a new truck if they need it, because they are very active. They do a lot of work in our city. Then 1020 Club hosted Kids and Cops Day over at Doty Middle School. Many of us attended, and I won't steal your thunder, Councilman Horacio. So then I'd like to also, we completed a number of resident requests with Public Works and Code Enforcement. We have a couple upcoming dates. Keep Downey Beautiful. They have a cleanup this Saturday, 9 a.m. at the Columbia Memorial Space Center, just 1 hour. Tomorrow, Wednesday, at 3:30 at City Hall on the 2nd floor is the monthly Neighborhood Watch meeting. You can come up to the 2nd floor, and our Keep Downey Beautiful coordinator will be there if you have any discussion on areas that need to be cleaned up. I believe we had added some names to our plaque on the Vietnam Memorial recently, and I'm pleased to see that that was done in memory of them. A couple save the dates. The 28th is an Arc Walk at Stonewood on 3/23, the 28th annual. We have also the Downey Kiwanis Casino Night this Friday, and that's at the Azar Event Center. And I just want to thank, again, PD Police Department for driving around our schools. Please continue to do that early morning and in the afternoon. A lot of residents are saying, not only are they double parking, these poor drivers, they're triple parking. And if you can have any time between the 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., the same thing in the afternoon at 3. And that's my council comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ortiz from the 1st District.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone, and hello, Downey. I also attended the Neighborhood Watch Block Captain meeting. I personally sent out a letter to all registered block captains in my district and others that were interested in taking part in this great program. I'm happy to report that I was able to start 4 new Neighborhood Watch groups, which is great because I mentioned during our meeting that residents are the eyes and ears whenever there are any suspicious activity occurring. And I know Councilwoman Formenta always says, engage communities are strong communities, so I take that to heart. I want to continue to ensure that we continue growing this program because it's a really great program. I attended the Women's Empowerment Conference. It was a great event, and equally great to be surrounded by such inspirational and powerful women. Their stories really inspired me, and I just want to recognize all the women in our lives. We have our grandmothers, our moms, our tias, our amigas, and our colleagues. So I just want to give a round of applause to all the women in our lives. So thank you guys so much for everything you've done. I also attended the Kids and Cops event hosted by the 1020 Club. It was a great event. I woke up early to help my staff to make 120 burritos for the kids and the staff. So I really enjoy doing all that for our community. It takes great pleasure that I help out.
Applause to you for that. That was nice.
Thank you. Lastly, I attended with the rest of my council colleagues the Downey Ponytail and the West Little League. It was a great day full of energy and healthy competition. I know I mentioned touchdown, but I just want to make sure tell everybody it was just a joke that I said touchdown, but it was home run. A couple things I'm requesting staff to look into. First, I want to request an anti-panhandling ordinance. I've been noticing a lot of more activity of people doing some juggling in our streets, washing windows or selling in the middle of our streets. And honestly, it's a little unsafe for these individuals to be in our busy intersections. So I was hoping we can have that ordinance, or I don't know if we do have that ordinance in place. I don't know if I can ask staff.
We'll look into it, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And secondly, I know that we have an ordinance in place for homeless for sleeping in our parks between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. I wanted to expand that ordinance to cover our Downey Theater, our Civic Center, churches, and schools. So I'm hoping I can get a second on that. Before I conclude, I also want to wish a happy... Oh, you want a second? Thank you, Mayor. Before I conclude, I want to wish a happy birthday to my father. I told my dad to watch. It is his birthday, and I just want to tell you, Dad, I love you, Papa. And with that, I conclude my comments for today. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I had an opportunity amongst all these other amazing events to meet with a company that's doing recycled rubber or something for sustainable asphalt. So really looking for ways on how we can become more environmentally friendly city. I had an opportunity to visit Carpin Elementary for their voting activity day. The kids, it was an exercise of democracy, and they had a vote of what snack they wanted, and the student body was invited to vote, trying to get individuals to get into the practice of voting early. Also had a chance to visit another elementary for Read Across America. I was a speaker at Huntington Park for their career day. And today we met, the Mayor Pro Tem and I, along with some staff, with Assemblywoman Blanca Pacheco to express to her our funding and legislative priorities. I'm asking for a couple events. I'm asking for staff, if I could get a second to look into how do we beautify the walkway or maybe an alleyway that's between the sports cap place, that's the locker room, and State Gallery. There's a walkway. Want to see, we've already started with shrubberies, but now I want to see if there's a way we can perhaps work with the owners to beautify that. I'm not sure if that's a public easement or a private property, but if we could look into that. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. And then we've been approached by the Community Family Guidance Center. Apparently they serve a good number of Downey residents, and they're having their fundraising drive. Want to see if we could increase our table sponsorship to the next level sponsorship for us to consider that. Can I get a second on that?
I can second that one.
But we have a table sponsorship already.
Yes, they're requesting a higher amount, so if we can discuss that at the next meeting. They're asking for the $5,000 sponsorship. And that concludes my comments and request. Thank you. Now we move on to comments by our city manager, Roger Bradley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick follow-ups real fast. Patrolling in the outlying areas of the city, we're definitely willing and able to beef that up and continue to do that work. I'm happy to report that we do actually have a new graffiti truck It's been purchased. It's currently being outfitted. Should be deployed in the next several weeks. So it takes a little while to get it up serviceable and ready to go and do all the work that our great team does. And I will say we do have a really good graffiti team here, as a matter of fact. And I think I've got everything else. Looking into the anti-panhandling ordinance, we'll definitely look into that. And if it's a second for us to work on any kind of ordinance changes, if there isn't one. Do we have that from the council?
Second.
All right, I think that's all I need. Thank you.
On the graffiti truck, did you say that it was ordered? What would be the ETA?
We already actually have
It's already
possession of it. It takes a little bit of
possession of
time to get it upfitted to deal with all the painting
Custom
needs
and all
and
that. Oh, good.
customizations.
Lino
yeah.
will like that, won't he?
Yeah, so.
Yes,
yeah.
that's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for getting that truck for us. I know we had requested that some months back. Thank you, sir. Tonight's scheduled presentation for the Mayor's Excellent Awards will be postponed due to a scheduling conflict by one of the honorees. We will schedule that for a future meeting. So now I will take public comment on agenda, consent calendar, non-agenda items. If you did not receive a number card and wish to speak, please proceed to the back of the room to be issued a number card by city staff. Before we begin the public comment period, I would like to remind members of the audience that the city's meeting rules contained in the Downey Municipal Code prohibit any conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Copies of the meeting rules are located in the back of the chambers. Members of the audience, the speakers who violate these rules and cause a disruption will receive one warning and then may be removed from the meeting. Violations of the rules of decorum for council meetings may also result in an administrative fine under the municipal code or a citation under misdemeanor penal code section 403. The City Council acknowledges the right of the public to address issues that are within the city's jurisdiction and invites the public to do so during the City Council meeting. However, this right must be balanced with the need of the city to conduct public business in a fair and efficient manner, free from disruption or disturbance. We expect that everyone who participates in today's meeting, from the members of the council here on the dais, to staff, to the members of the public in attendance, to do so with respect and dignity. Please refrain from using profanity, name-calling, or behaving in a way that disrupts the meeting. This includes yelling, whistling, booing, screaming, and any other outburst that disrupts or disturbs the meeting. Any conduct that interferes with or disrupts persons who are addressing the city council. Any conduct that interferes with or disrupts persons who are addressing the city council. Any conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Attacks of a personal nature on city staff or city council members that have no connection to agenda items or non-agenda items. I remind speakers that your comments must be addressed to me directly and not to any other council member, city staff, or the audience. City Clerk Duarte, did we review any written public comment to be incorporated into the record?
Yes, Mayor, we do. We received one written public comment from resident Pierre Dauphin in regards to organizing frequent hazardous waste collections within the city for residents.
Thank you so much. Before we get to the numbers, we do have someone I want to recognize, former Assembly Member De La Torre, our neighbor from the great city of Southgate, who's actually here as a representative from the COG, the City of Governments, to address the council. Mr. De La Torre, good evening and welcome.
Thank you, thank you. I've known you guys for so long and been in this room so many times when I represented Downey, but also for youth and government for so many times when our Downey school district kids and Southgate district kids were here, including my kids up there doing what you're doing. But I'm here tonight as the executive director of the Gateway Cities Council of Governments, of which Downey is a member. I took over about 8 months ago, and so I'm making the rounds, going to all the cities. We have 27 cities, 11 unincorporated areas. We have over 2 million residents in this region. If we were one city, we would be the 5th largest city in America. If we were one state, we would be the 38th largest state in America. And yet we're just a little piece of LA County. People don't understand that in Sacramento or in DC. And so it's something we have to constantly emphasize in what we're doing. For those of you that don't know, the COG handles issues that spill over city lines. It is a collaborative place for us to collectively work on issues that face us, namely transportation, housing and homelessness, environment, economic development, and as of last fall, health and wellness, public health, not going to a hospital and whatnot, preventative medicine. And so those are the issues that we cover. Downey is very much active in what we do. Certainly, we have some big projects that are going to impact Downey. The 710 corridor is hopefully going to be voted on by Metro next month. That plan will be in effect and will impact Firestone Boulevard, for example, and Florence. That's a very important piece. And then subsequent to that, we have the 605 potentially coming down the pike as well, some improvements there. Housing and homelessness, we're always looking for cities to do a little more on the homelessness piece. It's a problem that's not going to go away. We have 11,000 homeless in our region, second only to the city of Los Angeles. So we need to collectively do as much as we can for our homeless residents. And then economic development, on April 12th, we are hosting a workforce development conference. We want to upgrade skills. We want to do things like what Downey Adult School does with allied health professions, training up our residents so that they get better skills, get better pay, they'll stay in our communities, and that will be an economic development opportunity for us. On the environment, we have the SoCal REN and the Regional Climate Collaborative, which supports our cities in enhancing their sustainability efforts, greening their cities, which in many occasions means you pay less on your bills. So these are all things that we want to do for the communities, and we're always open to new ideas for collective action. So feel free to share those with me. You know where to find me. Just, well, I live in Southgate, right on the border with Downey, but I'm right over in Paramount at our offices, and I look forward to continuing the relationship with the great city of Downey. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to see us.
Yeah, thank you.
Always good seeing you, Hector.
Good to see you, Maddie.
Okay. City Clerk, just regarding written comment, is there a motion and a second to receive and file written public comment?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Please vote.
The motion is approved unanimously.
City Clerk Duarte, how many speakers have taken a number?
We have a total of 10 speakers.
Based on the number of speakers, each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the City Council. I remind all speakers that you must remain seated until your number is called. But when you start seeing that it's about 2:50 with 10 seconds left on the clock, if you could please start making your way to the podium, that will help us move the meeting along. Speaker number 1, please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to have served on the Public Works Committee. During my 2-month tenure, I attended every meeting, which was only 2 meetings. Ironically, the total number of meetings I believe the committee had all of last year. I know that initially there were concerns that I may have too much on my plate, as I was also appointed to the Parks and Recreation Commission. However, the only individual to reach out to me was former Mayor Formetta. I gave her my word that I would be at every meeting, which I kept. During my tenure, I brought up a few concerns for the residents of District 3, speed bumps for one, to help reduce speeding, reckless driving, and most recently, their concern regarding the project being proposed by the Almost company to develop 33 townhomes. I reached out to Mayor Trujillo, who was more than willing to go with me to the island and address some of their concerns. As I have made clear, I am not opposed to building homes in Downey. However, I am opposed to townhomes being built at that particular location as many residents because of the high volume of traffic. I bring this up because last week, Dorothy Pemberton called me to tell me that she would be removing me in my position, citing that she was getting grief from people that had too many positions and that she wanted to give another individual an opportunity. I find the timing quite interesting. The week prior, I made some comments on behalf of residents of the island at the Planning Commission meeting. After the meeting, as some of you may have heard, I had a verbal exchange with one Mario Guerra. Contrary to what he stated in his podcast, I met him after he came out of the restroom and politely asked if he had a couple of minutes to chat. He said, not really, but whatever. Before I could say anything, he started screaming in my face, saying it's BS, I don't give a shoot what someone does in their personal life. He stated that I had called out someone by name, that I gave false information, I was disrespectful. He was referring to something I had said in my comments. I told him to please go see the video. I did not call anyone by name, was not rude or cursed, and asked him what false information I had given. He replied saying I was full of poop. We kept talking. He told me again I was full of poop, and I replied, Mario, you are a POS, which I did say. Shortly after, he said he was going to call the police for an escort. I have not once been disrespectful at any time when coming up here to speak, nor do I have a history or record of violence in my 46 years of life on this earth. Though it was a regrettable situation, I do not regret it happened. In my opinion, not only is he a POS, he's a coward, a liar, and a bully. Now he knows that I will not be bullied. Now when I am bringing this up, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because it seems to me that the only reason I'm being removed from Public Works is because I'm speaking up against the Almost project on the island and because I'm opposing Mario Guerra. Is that what Downey has come to? Where we take out people who don't agree with those in power? Have we reached that level of corruption? Maybe I am far-reaching, but again, the timing seems a little suspect. I leave you with this. I give you my word that I will work even harder to make Downey the best city possible and will continue to be a voice for our residents. As John Paul Jones said, I have only begun to fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker number one, Mr. Valle. Speaker number two, please come forward. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ofelia Gonzalez. I work with Hogue Property Management, and I'm here with some of the community members of Glenbrook East HOA. And we're here just to voice some concerns regarding the recent rollout of Athens with the compost bins and the recycle bins. We're a little disappointed with the way it was rolled out. The bins were, obviously Athens has access to the community because they already take their trash. They literally left bins outside of the gates and just left them there. It took us a couple of days to even realize that they had been dropped off. But aside from that, the bigger concern is the rates at which they're charging. So the community went from paying $1,179 to paying almost $2,600. As you know, HOAs have a budget. This more than doubled their budget for their trash. They went from paying about $27 per unit to about $60 per unit monthly. And this community is actually about probably like 65% senior citizens. So we're just really concerned with the fact that there is no other option. They are the only option that was worked out, and the fact that these rates were approved. And we're a little disappointed and just really concerned with what's going on. And we just kind of want to see if there's any options to kind of modify these rates. I understand there's a contract, but we are just really baffled at how it was even approved. Because like I said, it's less services. So their trash is picked up twice a week. They have 3 bins, 3-yard bins. And that was $1,179, including the scout service to take them out to the curb and bring them back in. Now they're paying, like I said, almost $2,600, and all they're getting is 1 extra recycle bin, 1 extra compost bin, and those are 1.5 yards and 2 yards. So again, to charge almost more than $1,400 for that, for 1 time a week pickup, just seems really unfair, and we just want to see what can be done.
Thank you. If I could ask you to please provide your information to our Assistant City Manager. I did also read an article about this in the Downey Patriots. I would like if I could have staff look into this and maybe, how do you want to do this? Bring back a presentation, or we'll look into it.
Yeah, I have my business card. I'll drop it off with you.
Thank you for taking the time to
No, thank
come
you
and
guys.
see us.
And like, I really hope that we can look into this and find, you know, they're on a fixed income, and we would really like to
We shall
resolve this.
try.
And
Thank you.
thank you.
Speaker number 3, please come forward. And I appreciate you getting up when you sensed it was almost over. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm going off of the same subject. I am the Vice President for Glenbrook East Homeowners Association, and The homeowners in general, we have 43 units at this complex. And as she mentioned, the 65 to 70% of the residents are senior citizens. And our rate went up drastically. And it's going to probably cost another $65 to $70 per family for every one of our residents so we'd have to increase their association dues to be able to subsidize that. And so we're really at this point, I'm not here to make a statement, but to really initiate an inquiry into, number one, I know it's under Mr. Funk's jurisdiction and purview about how this particular contract was let. How was it awarded? Is the contract available to us so we can review the contract? Was the contract under a particular schedule for rate increases and what those rate increases were supposed to be? From what Athens tells us, because they met with us, is that this is only affecting multi-unit communities. It's not affecting regular residents because they were already rolled out apparently, but they didn't suffer a triple in their rate increase. So there is a disparity between what a regular single family rate was compared to a multi-unit family rate increases. So these are the types of questions that we'd like to be able to address with someone in particular. Was there any antitrust laws violated on this particular contract? Is it a monopoly? Because we don't have the opportunity to go to another company and say, okay, we'll contract you because it's a city-driven contract. So we have all these questions that we'd like to sit down with someone and try to get answered, because we have to report back to 43 families. And that's basically it. I appreciate
Certainly.
your time.
Thank you. I know that the contract should be available to the public. We're a transparent city. So if you could also provide your information, maybe perhaps our assistant city manager.
Sure.
She'll give you the process of how to get a copy of the contract. I am interested in the fact that your complex seems to be over 50% of your residents are senior citizens.
Absolutely.
Maybe they can I can't speak for
Yeah, I
Athens, it's a
understand.
private contract, but
Yeah.
we'll look into it. I mean, I think one thing that we have to remember is our senior citizens in particular.
Absolutely.
And if half of your residents are senior citizens on limited income,
I'm
we need to look into
I'm not
that.
quite there yet, but I'll get there.
Well, I'm 55, man. I'm 55, so I'm on my way. All right. Thank you
You're
for
there.
coming in.
Thank you
Let's
very
make sure
much.
we have the information. City Manager Bradley, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I'd just say we're happy to follow up with both groups and explain sort of what's going on with the rates. There is some state laws and things that have been enacted that have forced garbage companies to charge more in their rates. So we'd be happy to discuss that with you and let you know how about that goes. And it would
Understood.
definitely give you a copy of the agreement. So.
Fantastic. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very much.
sir.
Thank you.
We understand that number card number 4 is missing. Nobody's speaking up as 4. We ask that speaker number 5, please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. The reason why I'm here, I'm a resident for the last 3.5 years in this city of Downey. I live down on 3rd Street here. And a issue came up regarding my parking of my RV in front of my wife's residence. And over the last 3.5 years, I've parked my RV no more than 1 or 2 days in front of the house to load, unload for family trips. Well, last month I received a warning and then I received a citation. I'm here to tell you I'm contesting that through the proper channels, but my concern was this is a new ordinance that was somehow, I guess, brought before you guys March of 2023, adopted. I'm not sure when it became law, but we never received any notices from the city of Downey in regards to this new ordinance that only affects Downey residences. I know ignorance is no excuse for the law. I understand that, but that's my concern. That's why I'm here.
That's fair. I'm not sure what mechanism we have to advise the public when there's changes in ordinance, but
Yeah, generally we go through a noticing process with it on the agenda and post it to other places. Do we do a community-wide approach? I don't necessarily think that's the case. We're happy to reach out to the gentleman here and have a conversation with him on the side about the ordinance and its impact. And it sounds like he's been working on the appeal process. So if we can have a community development staff reach out to him and connect.
Thank you
we'll
very
talk to
much.
thank you for coming tonight, sir. Speaker number 6, please come forward.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening.
Ignorance is not an excuse for the law. If you're Joe Biden, it sure is. That's for sure. He just has poor memory. That's why he can hide classified documents wherever he wants to. For 50 years, he's been doing it. Okay, couple of things. The gateway cities, COG, if you want progress, don't go to any of you liberal Democrats. That will be a cog in the machine for sure. You will never get any of the issues that you create solved. Never, ever. Because you can't think clearly. Now, the gentleman that spoke earlier, the pastor, talked about wisdom, but in that case, you have to have the correct mindset. And to have the correct mindset, you have to be focused on God and not government as the solution to everything that you need to do. But we have people here that do not acknowledge God in any wisdom at all. I'd like to point out in Romans 1:25, it says, "And for that they exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshiped and served the creature rather than the creator." And that's what happened in Rome. People started worshiping animals and images and stuff like that. For that cause, God gave them over to vile passions. God gave them over to that. Okay? And they exchanged the natural use for what was God had provided for them. Women started being with women, men with men. Their thinking was clearly not in tune with God. So likewise, the men naturally left their use. They burned in their lust towards each other. And then eventually, what happens is they turn away from God and they can't think clearly. And then that's why we in this town, we need to eliminate the prospect of having any gay pride picnics or parades or anything like that. Because this is clearly a mental illness when God has given people over to a depraved mind to think in this manner. You'll know for sure anybody that approves of such behavior or participates in such behavior is not in tune with God. Their inside is ugly and God does not acknowledge them until they decide to repent of what they are doing and change their ways. And we can't trust anybody in government that wants to instill any of these events and not spend our money on any of these events or fly their flags. Thank you.
Speaker number 7, please come forward. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeremy Clifton, here as a resident, but I'm also the president of the Downey Rose Float Association. The reason for coming out tonight, for one, was to thank Mario for Mr. Mayor for coming out and swearing my board and myself in for this year's new board, I guess you could say. But I also wanted to thank each and every one of you guys for what I see so far is working together. I watched you guys online. I see you're all out to baseball events. You're at different things together, which hasn't happened very often lately in the past few years. So it's good to see you guys trying to come to common grounds and get things done for our city. One question I do have is, when we find out if Chief Logner is going to be our chief, we're going to get somebody from another city. Since we voted to keep the Downey Police Department, why did we go out of the city to try and get a different chief? Other than that, thank you guys for everything you do and for volunteering your time.
Thank you. Speaker number 8, please come forward.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. Bradley and staff, good evening. 2 topics tonight, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to discuss. First of all, has to do with public criticism of council people. Now, all of us don't like, or most of us don't like to be criticized publicly. I am one of those that do not like to be criticized publicly. But when one becomes a member of the City Council, one should be mentally prepared that you're going to be criticized for anything, from your words or from your actions. That's just life. You have to be strong about that. With regards to people standing here in front of this microphone and criticizing a member of the council, I noticed before that certain people have been bullied by a member of the council because the council member did not care for their comments. Now, I understand that, but what I think the council has to do is be above that. If I come before you and criticize you or a member of the council, I expect in my 2 or 3 minutes that I am given to be not interrupted by a member of that council, which has happened in the past. The second topic I have is that Sunday is the Los Angeles Marathon race, and we have in our audience tonight a member who for the last 37 years in a row has participated in that marathon. And I like to acknowledge that individual. It's Michael Calvert. With that in mind, this ends my comments. I yield my remaining time back to you.
Thank you. Speaker number 9, please come forward.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, council members. The reason I'm here is that last Wednesday, as we all know, we want to keep an eye on our neighborhoods. Last Wednesday, I saw a car pull up in front of my house, take a picture, take off. Pull up in front of another house, take a picture, take off. I witnessed it twice, and then I went to pursue the person, and they took off. So what I received is a letter dated March 6th that said that my property needed painting and some painting. That was it. It was dated the 7th. The postmark is Saturday the 9th. The letter says that I have to complete all of the items on here by March 21st. So from the time I receive this to the time it's due is 12 days for painting. And of those 12 days, 3 of them are weekend days, Saturdays or Sundays. So I have to find out a contractor, what needs to be done, come up with the money, and as the great Joe Biden said, I may not look my age, but I have been around quite a while. So consequently, what I'm here to say is that why does a person send a government stationery letter to a Downey resident of over 20 years, senior citizen, and not even bother sealing the envelope? Negligence, just incompetence. But the thing is that I was told that if I do not do this by the 21st, somewhere in here it says that I could be fined $100. And after a certain amount of time, there's another reference to $1,000. And so I'm wondering, why does this person act like a criminal? Because I thought they were taking pictures of my house to break into my house. We've had homes broken into. My next door neighbor was broken into. Other homes in the neighborhood has been there. So why is this guy Mr. Amir, I can't pronounce his last name. Why does he conduct himself like a criminal? Because if you see somebody, if you're in your house, in your home, and you see somebody come up and take a picture and then move, take another picture, your neighborhood's could be being cased. There could be something. This happened to my neighbor next door about 2 years ago. So the point that I'm here is that to say that 9 days to comply with a city ordinance, okay, which I'm happy to do with compliance, but I don't like the way this is being done. I mean, and so with that, I'll leave that there. But just to make a comment on a commentator, okay, he said about Biden leaving government documents all over town. Can I just finish that one thought? Trump is up for 41 charges on that.
Thank you, sir. In regards to the code enforcement issue, I will say this. I've always made it clear to our code enforcement that when it comes to our residents, we always want to operate from a point of thinking that whoever lives in that house, be them a resident or the owner, perhaps needs help, and we should not be issuing citations so readily. So rest assured that we will work with you, sir, and provide whatever time is necessary so we can work on these corrections. We're going to have our Community Development Director, Irma Huitron, give you her card personally so we can be in contact with you. Thank you for coming tonight. Speaker number 10. Thank you.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Good evening, sir.
I wanted to talk about DUI checkpoints. And the reason why I bring this up, last Tuesday, a week ago today, my wife at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday was hit head on by a drunk driver, opposite side of the road. I want to give you guys credit because you guys both showed up instantly. So both of you guys' departments, really appreciate that. But I just wanted to throw it out there. You see, I remember when I was in my 20s, right, we would go out. There would always be DUI checkpoints on Imperial under the bridge. I haven't seen that in the past maybe 5 years. I don't know if I miss them, but I must miss them. But just wanted to see if you guys could double check those out. Thankful, my wife's good, everybody's good. Car was totaled. First day she drove it, which is cool. But other than that, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you. I know that we do post DUI checkpoints regularly on social media, particularly in Discover Downey, and the paper carries it. But we still are conducting DUI checkpoints. Thank you. Speaker number 11, please come forward.
Hello,
Good evening.
Mayor Trujillo, City Council, and citizens and residents of Downey. I really was going to start off with just a very friendly tone, but I think that was against city policy, how you allowed for him, even after the clock ended, the time ended for him, after saying that he had a contention against one of the other speakers, you allowed him to talk. Where I've seen it many times where you cut people off right when that buzzer sounds. So those are the kind of things, Mario, that really upset people and that aren't just. It was just shown right in front of everybody here. And I try with the kind heart to come at you friendly, but just friendly doesn't work with you. It doesn't. You don't take into account other people's beliefs, morals, values, policies, codes of ethics. You don't do it. So how do you expect people to reciprocate that? You need you're a good guy, smart man, lawyer, attorney, but just really be just, okay? And take into account other people's beliefs and values as well. That wasn't right, how you allowed for that to happen. My whole purpose of me talking today was to address the parks. The parks need to be revitalized and redeveloped. Independence Park, I take my daughter there, she's 4 years old. They have this slide for the little kids that has been blocked off for 2 years now. It's blocked off with wood. We sponsor all these different groups, 5,000 here, so they can host an event for free in our city, but we can't even fix some parks for our children that we pay our tax dollars for. So that would be great if we could fix that slide so little kids at the park could use it over there at, that's actually at Apollo Park, the 2 smaller slides at Apollo Park. Also the swings, we only have 2 unrestricted swings, and my daughter, she's only 4 years old, and as she goes down, she's hitting her feet on the swings, on the bottom. So the ground. So we need to get some swings, adequate swings for the kids at Apollo Park. Independence Park, they're missing swings. They don't even have unrestricted swings. We should have a walking path around the park. We don't have a basketball court at Independence Park. I think there should be one. And one other thing, I believe that there shouldn't be a $5 parking fee at Wilderness Park. That's absurd. That's a public park, a beautiful park that we like taking our families to with a lot of different species out there. It should be free for the public, and also that vacant place should be in downtown Downey, should be for an Italian restaurant.
Thank you, Speaker 11. I believe Wilderness Park is free to Downey residents. How would they make arrangements, Mr. Chacon, to get free parking if you're a Downey resident?
You can contact the Parks and Recreation Office to receive a permit that's good annually. Just have to show an ID or a bill that you're a Downey resident, and we'll help you out. Or if you go to the park, the staff there at the park have the application that you can fill out and give you your free permit.
Thank you. And just to remind people, the reason why we implemented the parking situation there is because of the influx of outsiders, non-Downey residents that were coming to use the park. We needed a way to control or at least monetize the use so we can keep it as pristine as possible for our residents who absolutely are invited to come enjoy the park for free. Speaker number 12, good evening.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Michelle Farina, and I'm a lifelong resident of Downey. I'm here to urge Downey City Council to propose and pass a resolution calling for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Let's come together as a community and demand that we cease funding the Israeli military as they carry out collective punishment with our money. The Israeli military does not take measures to protect civilians in Gaza who are trapped with nowhere to run as airstrikes obliterate their families and the entirety of the Gaza Strip. Israel's military cut off food, water, fuel, and electricity in the first week after the tragic day of October 7th. What does this tell you about the situation? Forget that Israel is willing to cut these things off. Can we talk about the fact that they are able to? Gaza has been subjected to a brutal blockade since 2007. Israel controls what goes in and what comes out. Palestinians have been subjected to Israel's military occupation for decades, and the world is finally waking up to this fact. This is not a war, this is genocide. There needs to be protection of the Palestinian people who have had no right to defend themselves since the State of Israel was established on their land. The people of Gaza are not simply experiencing starvation, but are actively being starved. Humanitarian organizations say that there has never been such a rapid decline in nutrition in modern recorded history. Israeli protesters are having barbecues and dance parties on the roads to block aid entering Gaza. The Kingdom of Jordan and the US military have started airdropping a small amount of aid into Gaza, a desperate measure that doesn't make sense, as there are 7 border crossings into Gaza that could be opened, and by land is obviously the most practical and safest way to get food and aid in. Not only are the airdrops inefficient and insufficient in quantity, they are dangerous. This past week, at least 5 people were killed and many others injured when a parachute did not open, crushing desperate and hungry people to death. This has to stop. There needs to be an immediate and permanent bilateral ceasefire. There needs to be an unrestricted flow of humanitarian aid. There needs to be negotiations for a hostage exchange. There needs to be protection of all humanitarian aid workers. The huge rallies around the world should not be labeled as pro-Palestinian or anti-Israeli. We are not calling for harm to Jews or to Israeli citizens. We are calling on humanity to come together and stop the war machine that thrives off of keeping us divided and uninformed. We are anti-genocide, anti-occupation, anti-impunity. We are pro-equality, pro-liberation, pro-justice, pro-truth. Please cease fire now. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 13, please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, City Council, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. So today I have a question for the council. What would be your response if the wealthy patrons of the Tongva people, traditional inhabitants of the Rio Hondo, decided to work with the state of California to annex District 3 and 4 of the city of Downey without consulting any of Downey's leadership? Think about that. Since the passing of the Balfour Declaration in 1917, the leaders of the Zionist movement have done everything they can to systematically prevent the previous Ottoman-occupied Palestinians from establishing their own state and having a shot at self-governance. When a population is traded from the hands of one global superpower to another, while at the same time dealing with a rush of immigration triggered by another oppressed population looking for safe haven in the most underhanded of ways, what hope do they have for any sense of sovereign stability? Couple that with the jailing and extrajudicial killings of several key leaders in the Palestinian High Council by the British occupying state of that time, and the fracturing of the only lands they've known during the Western-backed 1948 Nakba, an ethnic cleansing campaign masquerading as a war between Israel and the Arab League. The saddest turn of events is undoubtedly that a small fraction of this desperate society reverted to terrorism, leading to Israel and the rest of the Western world labeling them all as terrorists. However, when wealthy patrons use biblical texts to lay claim to their ancestral homes, when Israel colludes with the United States to pass SC 242 after the Six-Day War, leaving in ambiguous language Israel used to keep war-occupied lands and leave out any reference of Palestine, when the West turned a blind eye to Mossad, the Israeli intelligence arm murdering any Palestinian leader with diplomatic skill, and when Israel used expert legal representation to run legal circles around Arafat in the 1978 Camp David Accords and Oslo Accords of 1993, anyone can see how that level of hopelessness can lead to the desperate violence that we see today. If Downey wants future generations of Downey youth to look back at our history and say with pride that we were on the side of justice and compassion, I urge the current council to ask staff to draft a resolution declaring that the need for the release of all October 7th hostages, yes, that's necessary, a permanent ceasefire in Gaza and the West Bank, and the hurried supply of necessary aid to starving Palestinians in Gaza. We are the example that will carry on to and into the future. Let's act like it. Ceasefire now.
Thank you.
I'm submitting into the record the Balfour Declaration of 1917, the White Paper of 1939 from the Yale Law School, and the SC 242 from 1967.
Thank you, Speaker number 13. Speaker number 14, is there a speaker number 14? Okay. Oh, there he is. Please come forward. And there's a 15, right? Okay. 6. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joaquin Beltran, and I am here today to stand with our Palestinian siblings who are undergoing a genocide at the hands of the United States, at the hands of Israel. And this genocide has been going on for more than 5 months. Tonight, on top of what we've been asking for week after week, for you to call for a permanent ceasefire and put pressure on our president and our congressional members, including Robert Garcia, who has been funding this genocide, which is absolutely shameful. I am asking you, which side are you on? When you see siblings being removed from the rubble, holding each other as they were bombed, which side are you on? When Israel cut off water which side are you on? When they cut off fuel, electricity, which side are you on? When Israel kept declaring that citizens of Gaza move to the south and then keep bombing to the south. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I shared with you all that Israel had declared Rafah as a safe zone, and now they were attacking Rafah. Tonight, they are going into Rafah, what they declared a safe zone. When you are carpet bombing, killing everyone in the safe zones, which side are you on? When Israel is blocking aid, life-saving aid, at every point of the border, which side are you on? When you see images of children starving, when children dying of that starvation, intentional starvation, which side are you on? When infants are left in their ICUs, and you see those images of them dead, decomposing, children, infants, newborns, which side are you on? When our service member in the Air Force, Aaron Bushnell, goes in front of the Israeli embassy, lights himself on fire in condemnation of this genocide against the innocent indigenous Palestinian people, which side are you on? When history looks back, and history is looking now at you, staying silent, which side are you on? Free Palestine.
Thank you. Speaker number 15, please come forward. Speaker number 15. Good
Hello.
evening.
Thank you. I'm here today to echo calls for a ceasefire. More than 70 U.S. cities have called for a ceasefire in Gaza as of February, including several here in Southern California. A majority of voters want a ceasefire. Democrat or Republican, a majority want a ceasefire. Not everyone has the time to come and voice this at city council meetings, but for every person who is up here urging this council to call for a ceasefire, know that there are thousands more who agree, but were unable to voice it today. The disgust and the horror at the things Israel is doing to Gazans is increasing every day. Besides the tens of thousands of deaths from bombings, Gazans are also dying of starvation and sickness as a result of inadequate access to food and clean water, which are artificial conditions created by Israel with the support of the US. Voters are watching what this council and every other elected official is doing and saying in the face of these preventable atrocities. Please propose and pass a resolution for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 16, please come forward.
Hi.
Good evening.
Victoria Smith. I notice as this meeting has progressed, we started out with 10 speakers, and we gave them 3 minutes. And as the meeting went on, people showed up late, took a number, showed up later, took a number, and now we're up to 16 speakers, myself being one of them. Whereas originally, if we'd had 16 speakers, we would have had 2 minutes. And the fact that people seem to think that they can use this podium for their own personal opinions to be aired over video and audio to the community has gotten to be a little excessive. At the beginning of the meeting, Mayor, you said that the speakers should keep their comments to topics that pertain to the city of Downey. And I am, of course, a free speech advocate, but the purpose of the city of Downey's city council meetings is to address issues that pertain directly to the citizens and residents of Downey. it's precious time, and we only have so much of it. And your time is valuable also. I don't really think that this is a forum for political speech in that sense, that a meeting intended to deal with civic issues becomes overtly political. And I would encourage you to cut off the ability of people to take a number late in the meeting. I think there should be a time frame. If you're not here on time, I'm sorry, you miss out. You don't show up for dinner on time, maybe you don't get to eat. And that's kind of simple. So anyway, something to think about.
Madam Clerk, seeing no other speakers, is there a motion and a second to close public comment?
Motion to close public comment.
Second.
Thank you. So ordered by the mayor. Now's the time for consent calendar items. Are there any council members that would like to remove or abstain from an item? I do have to recuse myself from item number 11. But that matter will be handled at a later time. Our city attorney does not tell me I have any conflicts at this point, so moving on with the consent calendar. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
I'm not going to pull anything. I just wanted as a time to make it just a comment on one of the items.
What items would that be?
Item 2, just so that the residents know a little bit of the background because we were provided with some information.
Sure. Would you like to give the comments, Councilwoman?
With the vehicle purchase here, that we had vehicles, I want to let the residents know, we had a lot of old vehicles. These are our police vehicles that are run, 24 hours a day. We had some cars with 2016 to 2021. We even had one vehicle, 2011. And the cars that it said in the report, in the staff report that we're getting, we're not doing the Ford Explorers, the Dodge Durangos are about $6,000 less. So there's going to be a savings to that. And also Ford was taking 2 years to deliver the cars. So we had an opportunity to move on this opportunity to fill our void and the lack of cars that we had in our rotation system. So it's something that's good for our police department.
Thank you. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve consent calendar.
I'll second.
Thank you. Please vote.
The consent calendar is approved.
I would like to note that there are some individuals who were just appointed commissioners. We want to congratulate them and invite them to participate and receive their official city certificate at the next meeting and to take pictures with their council member. There are 3 administrative reports that will be discussed this evening. Item number 11 will be heard last, as I will be recusing myself from the item due to owning property in the downtown Downey area. At the request of staff, item number 13 will be pulled from the consideration of the agenda, and staff will return with the item at a future council meeting. So proceeding to item number 10, a report regarding the potential installation of a second dog park, that the city council discuss and provide staff with direction regarding a potential dog park within the city and adequacy of the proposed locations. City Manager Bradley, is there a staff report for item number 10?
Yes, Mayor. Jason Chacon, our Parks and Recreation Director, will provide the staff report. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chacon.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I am back today to talk and give the City Council information on the potential installation of a second dog park. Last year at a special meeting, city staff was asked to come back to the City Council to discuss some potential locations to adding a second dog park on the south end of the city. Just some brief background, our current dog park was established by the City Council in 2009, currently at Rio San Gabriel Park. We do get a lot of visitors there. We get 10,000 visitors a year. It's a very popular park that's about 15,000 square feet. And our new dog park would operate off the same model. So it would be a dog park that's split into 2 sections, one for large dogs and one for small breed dogs.
And we have a couple potential locations. First, the dog park, fenced off public park where owners and dogs can socialize in an off-leash area. Definitely an amenity a lot of cities have, and to have two would be great. Some factors that we considered, one was city location. The city council had a priority to have it in the south end of the city. Proximity to entry to allow easy community access, close to parking lots or side streets, somewhere that was easy to get to. Available parking, existing water source so we can have a water fountain, and then potentially some other impacts that we have, either being next to residential or park programming. We have a lot of parks. They are programmed and have a lot of great activities. So we had to find a location that fit that need and didn't necessarily overlap with other programs that we might have at some of the parks. Going through the two locations before you today, the first park that staff is recommending is Golden Park. Golden Park is on the south end of town. It's about 8 acres. We're just south of Imperial Highway. So the park itself is a quiet, passive park, although we do have an athletic field there. It's not home to one organization necessarily. We get a lot of people who have picnics there, who use the outdoor basketball courts, the walking trail. All of that was done during Measure S. You can see here from the overview, location that we are looking at is in this backside of the park. It's off behind the basketball courts. Roughly, we would be looking at about 18,000 square feet, which is just a little bit bigger than our current dog park. It would be split into 2 different sections that you'd be able to use for large and small. We have a walking trail here that goes on the outside of the park next to the residential. We would be away from that. It would be on the inside of the tree line where we have some natural shade, but also some sunlight. An area that we'd be easy to get to either from the north parking lot of Golden Park or street parking off of Pritchard. Both of those were pros, the access and the parking. The park balance was important for us. We do have a lot of people who picnic there, but we don't have any sports organizations. We don't get a large crowd of people all the time. That neighborhood does use that park very often, but for different things. So a dog park to us would be okay in the balance of the park and the programming we have there. And then we have nearby water sources that we'd be able to draw from to be able to do that. What it would entail, we would redesign that entire portion. We would talk about coming back at a later time, but we would come back with a design to see exactly what we would implement there. We would have different turf ideas of what we can do, some amenities that we'd be able to fit the square footage there. Some of the cons in this location, it is a little close to residential on this west side of that park. And then the other con, and then I'll go forward a couple here, is the proximity to our other dog parks. So I'm gonna go, here's the location, sorry. So this is a little bit from the ground view. This is from Pritchard Street. This is our building and our basketball courts in this section, and then looking from the other way. So you can see there's a lot of turf and ground there that we'd be able to use. Like I said, some natural shade, but also sun. I'm gonna move forward to show you this. So our current dog park sits right in the middle of the city, if you will, just on the eastern border. So Rio San Gabriel Park is this pin on the far right, and it is right south or north of Firestone. So you can see the proximity to Golden Park is about 2.7 miles, and it would put it on the south end of the city, which is something the council did ask for. And you'll see that the other option we're gonna give you over at Crawford Park, just to put into context, being on the other side of the city, if you will, being still in the middle off of Firestone, but more on the western border per se than keeping everything on the southeastern side of the city. So I'll go back to this picture after I'm done with Crawford Park as well. The other pro here that we will give you for Golden Park is that it's owned by the city, and you'll see why that's a pro in a minute. The other location is Crawford Park. Crawford Park is located on the western side of the city, north of Firestone. This is a 2-acre parcel, and you'll see it's in a community off of Dinwiddie that we do have a passive park here. We just redid this playground last year, so we have a brand new playground here. And we have a grass area here that is underutilized. It'd be a bit bigger, 22,000 square feet. Some of our pros here are definitely the access that we're able to park here and get in and not really disturb a lot of people. We are near residents, but not as close as the other location. We have the wash. This is the Rio Hondo River on the other side. Our park balance,
We are getting an influx of visitors from the riverbed into this neighborhood that we probably don't want that often. So putting a dog park here and programming this would help bring people here. This would help program this area. This would help deter people from coming in and hanging out after hours or when they shouldn't be. And then also we have a water source here that is good for us. Our cons are parking. There is a small parking lot here that has about 5 or 6 stalls that is owned by Edison, as well as the rest of this park being owned by Edison. We had come to the council last June to talk about that being an issue. We had submitted some initial paperwork. Mayor Pro Tem at the time, Trujillo, asked us to go back and ask again, which we have done. And city staff has submitted second land use permit application, even though we've gotten a no initially, with another letter of reconsideration. We have not received a response at this time. We are still awaiting that response. But this would be the other location. You can see from the picture here, there's a lot of real estate here. It would tackle a couple different issues. May not be in the south end of the city necessarily, but it does give us some balance on what we have going forward. Again, just to show you the map that we were talking about earlier, Firestone, it would go all the way down and it would be on the other end here. Roughly, and again, this is just to have discussion amongst the council about what your priorities are or what your thoughts are on those things. Again, this is all pending Southern California Edison's response to our permit. We would come back to the city council once you guys give us direction on a certain location. We would come back at a further time to discuss plans and a little bit more of the details. We do have a preliminary, roughly dog parks these days and what it's taking to build. At the cheapest end of that, you're probably looking at $350,000 for the design and done of everything we have going on there. We have also, so people also know, Rio San Gabriel, we've been asked to make sure we do some renovations there to the current dog park. And in the current project that we have going on at Rio San Gabriel, where we are redoing the parking lots and the playground there at Rio San Gabriel, we'll actually also be updating the dog park there as well, our current dog park. So those are some things to consider and some notes for the council. I am here to answer questions or any discussion that you might have regarding the 2 locations.
I actually have one question, or a couple questions. You said right now during the Rio Hondo, the dog park that we currently have, what are you updating right now? What's currently in the process of being updated?
So at the end of this fiscal year, we have a grant. We have 2 different grants. So we're doing a larger project at Rio San Gabriel that includes a brand new all-inclusive playground, a brand new parking lot, picnic shelters, walking trails, security lighting. And a part of that, we will also be updating the current dog park. So we'll be updating the fencing and actually making one of the sides larger. We'll be updating the turf that we have there and adding some amenities, clearing out some of the brush that we have there, and just making it a little bit bigger of a space.
Okay. And my other question, just out of curiosity, what would staff say that the dog park near Golden Park being so close to residents is a con? Did you hear any negative responses from residents?
We didn't. I own a large breed dog myself. And so having dogs there during the daytime, we don't have a dog park at night. Our lights are not on for that reason, to disturb the neighbors. But any residents who live here who might have dogs, those dogs might have adverse reactions to having other dogs in the neighborhood right next to them, depending on how dogs act or are with other dogs when they're around.
And then my last question, since June of 2020 was the last time you heard a response from Edison, right?
No, we heard a response from Edison this year. Initially, in 2020 was Department of Water and Power that we were looking at some sites over closer to the Rio Hondo Golf Course. And then we heard back from them earlier this year in 2024 in January, and then went back to them again just a couple weeks ago with the new letter to re-ask.
So in January, what was the response? Or what'd you hear?
Originally, it was no.
No?
Yeah, they are currently not allowing any new active features at their locations. They are only including or allowing passive walking trails, anything that doesn't have structure to it, no metal. And this is all the way down their property. So unfortunately, we ran into this with our community gardens as well. They wouldn't even allow community gardens. Only entities that already have them established were grandfathered in.
Thank you for the presentation. That's my last questions I have.
Thank you, Jason. I had a couple of questions. How big is the square footage, the dog park at Rio San Gabriel?
Currently 15,000 square feet.
And, well, you know, we still have to go through the motion of a decision, but I would favor city-owned property as opposed to, you know, not having complete control over the situation. But at Golden Park, I've been there plenty of times. Any concern with that dog park, proposed dog park being so close to Pritchard Street right there?
Not very much. We get a lot of people who go to the park with their dogs already, who you have to have your dog on a leash anyway. So it depends where they park. I think a lot of people will park off of Pritchard to start with, but I don't see any concerns. I see a lot of, unfortunately, with a lot of landlocked cities these days, there aren't a lot of buffer zones that are available. So I know a lot of the dog parks even that I attend, you're right next to usually a busier street, unfortunately. Whittier has that problem. Santa Fe Springs has that problem. So at least we're in a residential neighborhood, but yeah, I don't see much of an issue.
All right. And how long is with the renovations and improvements at Rio San Gabriel, how long is that dog park out of commission for?
We don't have the exact time yet. We're still waiting on some cost estimates to get back from the engineers that would give us a better time, but we're probably looking at about 3 to 5 months. The whole park will actually be shut down for roughly about 5 months.
And we get roughly maybe a little bit under about 1,000 visitors with their dogs per month at Rio San Gabriel?
Per month, roughly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, I'll do the comment. I think it's a great idea to have Crawford Park down in South Downey, and not Crawford, I'm sorry, Golden Park. It will allow that area that they have a lot of dogs to bring the dogs. It also will kind of deter any kind of crime or things around that park. I know a lot of times we have people that are coming into that. I think it would be a great location. And of course, in my area, that Crawford Park, that too will stop a lot of maybe the transient activity going through. It's in a quiet area, the dogs wouldn't disrupt. And I understand the Edison factor. When I went to, I think it was League of California Cities, we met an Edison person there at the table, and I had a chance to speak with them about this. And they too were saying, well, we really don't want to do the dog parks per se, like you've said, but there is another level that maybe you can put the application to, which is what they've done. I even had an email on my trip back to say why and why can't we, it's just a fence. So I say that we do pursue Crawford. I think it's a great location. We can move perhaps forward with the Golden Park. That's another good spot as well. But this is what I think our residents are needing in our city that we are lacking, and I think they'll appreciate it.
I like the idea of both, and I think we should pursue both. Our residents deserve both. So at this time, I would like to entertain a motion and a second, but don't limit yourself to idea that you have to accept one. Any motions?
My motion to accept it, to go to Golden Park and not stop. I agree that I think maybe sooner or later at some point, every district can have a dog park. I think waiting for Edison at some point will be ideal, but we should not stop from creating another dog park in our community, given the traffic that Rio San Gabriel Park does. So I motion to approve at Golden Park.
I second that motion.
And so if I understand the motion, the direction to staff we're giving is go forward with Golden. It's ours. We own it. Let's get the design and figure out we'll get the money, but keep going with Crawford and let's see what they say.
And perhaps if Crawford turns out that it can't be a dog park, we could look at any other city-owned land that's just there as a lot or a vacant that we have control over that we could put it in.
Excellent.
Golf course.
Any discussion regarding the motion? And there's been a second by Councilwoman Pemberton. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
The motion is approved unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chacon. Item 12, options for regulations of the retail sale of tobacco and tobacco products. That the City Council discuss options to regulate the retail sale of tobacco and tobacco products in the city and provide direction to staff on which options to research further and bring back for consideration. City Manager Bradley, is there a staff report for item number 12?
Yes, Mayor, we have our Director of Community Development who will provide the report.
Good evening, Ms. Huitron.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Give me just a moment. At its January 9th meeting earlier this year, the City Council requested that staff return with the report reporting the number of tobacco retailers that primarily sell tobacco and tobacco products within the city, citywide, and within each council district. And that we also provide options for regulating these establishments that focus on the exclusive sale of tobacco products and tobacco products and other associated tobacco. Just to provide some context for today's discussion, as far as local regulation, the city does not currently have a definition for a tobacco retailer that focuses on the sale of tobacco and tobacco products. The city also does not have any other types of regulations beyond zoning that would provide any type of tax license for tobacco products. The California Business and Professions Code does provide that cities have the ability to enact local control laws related to taxing for example, the tobacco retailer license that we will be discussing, but the collection of state taxes is exclusive to the state. The city also, the California Business and Professions Code also authorizes city to implement local licensing laws that we will discuss today. From the federal standpoint, the Federal Tobacco Control Act prohibits the sale of candy and fruit-flavored cigarettes. And more recently, there's been legislation, SB 793, that prohibits tobacco retailers or any of the tobacco retailers, agents, employees from selling, offering for sale, or possessing with the intent to sell or offer for sale most flavored tobacco products. To focus a little bit on recent legislation that was related to the previous legislation I mentioned, SB 935, strengthens the enforcement of flavored tobacco retail laws and broadens the definition of what can be considered a retail location. In the state's definition of a retail location, for tobacco, it's inclusive of a building where products are sold at retail, tobacco products are sold at retail, and it also includes a vending machine, vehicle, mobile unit, booth, stand, or concession that conducts in-person sales of tobacco products. And effective January of this year, the sale of flavored tobacco products is prohibited, including the various products listed here, including flavored e-cigarettes or vapes that can deliver nicotine or another vaporized liquid, e-juice pods or cartridges, menthol cigarettes, flavored little cigars, cigarillos, flavored smokeless tobacco products, flavored blunt wraps, flavored loose leaf roll up your own tobacco, flavored tobacco rolling paper, and flavored product flavor enhancements. As I mentioned earlier, one of the purpose of tonight's goal is to provide an overview of the tobacco retail locations in the city that focus primarily on the sale of tobacco and tobacco products. And this slide and contained in your report are the various locations throughout the city that the city staff was able to identify as primarily conducting the sale of tobacco and tobacco products. We have approximately 16 throughout the city dedicated to the sale of those products. We have 5 in Council District 1, 4 in District 2, 4 in District 3, 3 in District 4, and as I mentioned, 16 citywide. Staff has prepared various options for City Council's consideration tonight, and these various options can be used together to regulate the sale of tobacco and tobacco products. They can be used together or independent of one another. With regard to option number 1, this option establishes an ordinance requiring a tobacco retailer license. The ordinance would require any person who primarily sells or offers for sale tobacco, tobacco products, or tobacco paraphernalia to obtain a city tobacco retailer permit. In this type of permit, the city is entitled to impose conditions upon which the retailer must operate under. If this option is selected, city staff would be researching and drafting the language necessary to bring back an ordinance for council's consideration, requiring a tobacco retailer permit, which would set forth procedures for application, including any applicable fees, grounds for denial of a permit, appeal procedures, and penalties for any violations related to the tobacco ordinance that would be drafted. This type of ordinance would require city council approval at a future city council meeting. The next option establishes what are commonly referenced as buffer zones. This would be in the form of an ordinance as well and would create buffer zones or separations prohibiting the regulated tobacco retailers from being within a specified difference of what we normally call sensitive uses, which can be schools, daycares, or even other tobacco retailers could be part of the ordinance. In this option regulates new tobacco retailers from locating, as I said, near other sensitive uses, and by also implementing a buffer or separation requirement, we can also potentially prevent an overconcentration of tobacco retailers within one vicinity. And in the image there, for example, it's only an example. There could be a minimum distance separation requirements between two tobacco retailer shops to prevent an overconcentration, or a similar or separate distance requirement can be placed to separate a tobacco retailer from locating next to a sensitive use, for example, a school or a daycare or a type of educational center. If option 2 is selected, city staff will prepare an ordinance specifying the requirements for regulating tobacco retailers citywide, establishing buffer zones and separation requirements. And in this option would require a review and recommendation by the Planning Commission, and that recommendation by the Planning Commission would then be forwarded to the City Council for further consideration and review as an ordinance. Ordinance option number 3 establishes a maximum number of establishments citywide that would be defined as tobacco retailers. This would create a method for calculating the maximum number of retail establishments that primarily sell tobacco and tobacco products within the city and or within each of the city council districts. If this option is selected, city staff would prepare the ordinance specifying the requirements for the tobacco retailer citywide, and this type of ordinance would also require review, and a recommendation by the Planning Commission would be forwarded to the City Council for final consideration. Option number 4 is for requiring a conditional use permit. The ordinance would require a CUP for retail establishments that primarily sell tobacco and tobacco products. This option would allow the city to consider any potential impacts from the operation of each tobacco retail store and adopt conditions of approval to address the impacts through the conditional use permit process. If option 4 is selected, city staff would prepare an ordinance specifying the requirements. This option also requires review and a recommendation by the Planning Commission, and that would be forwarded to the City Council. Option number 5 would establish an ordinance specifying operational and performance standards for tobacco retailers. If option number 5 is selected, city staff would provide recommendations for developing best practices to guide those operational and performance requirements, and also look at ways of streamlining permit or review processes for tobacco retailers to ensure we provide a comprehensive review. Examples of the types of topic areas that we would look at would be the visibility, for example, of products from the public right-of-way, the hours of operation, limitations on combining tobacco retailers with other uses, such as entertainment or the sale of alcohol, for example. Option number 6 would be to research, and potentially modify zoning regulations. Under this option, we would explore zoning regulations that would limit zoning districts in which the sale of tobacco, where tobacco retailers can establish within the city. Currently, existing tobacco retailers are considered general retail sales and can be located in the C1 and C2 zones. Under this option, city staff would research zoning districts and options for limiting the use in one or more zones. If option 6 is selected, staff would research and prepare its findings for review by the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission would review and provide a recommendation to the City Council in the form of an ordinance for review and further consideration. And option number 7 is no changes. No changes means that tobacco and tobacco retail stores would continue to be considered general retail sales in our zoning code, and we would not be moving forward with either option 1 through 6. The timeline for implementing options 1 through 6, staff estimates would be between 3 and 6 months, depending on the intensity and level of research that we conduct. All of these options require preparation of an ordinance, and that information would also, most of those options would require review and a recommendation by the Planning Commission, which means that there would be a public hearing before the Planning Commission, and that recommendation would be brought forward to the City Council for further consideration. And tonight's recommendation by staff for the City Council is that City Council discuss the options that we've presented tonight to potentially regulate tobacco retailers that primarily sell tobacco and tobacco products in the city, and provide direction to staff on which options to further research and bring back for further consideration. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Huitron. At this time, do any council members have any questions or comments?
Well, I do have some comments because I was the council member that brought this for consideration. The purpose of this decision of mine was truly just to protect our youth, and specifically in ensuring that they are not getting addicted to any tobacco or flavored vapes. To my understanding, I know some of these businesses are selling unregulated products, and to my belief, I think we have enough of these tobacco stores. I think we have 16 in total. We have 16 in total in our community, 5 of which are in my community, and so in my districts, excuse me. And I just think it's just so near to our schools. And my decision of bringing this forward is just to protect our youth and making sure that we can do whatever we can so they don't get the opportunity to get involved to other type of potential drugs. I know they sell. I know. I'm sorry, I don't smoke or anything, but these weed wraps and all this, and like I mentioned in the last meeting, I think there are a lot of potential for other drugs and fentanyl, and I'm just doing whatever I can to protect our youth and our kids. And so, I mean, I would like to entertain the motion of option 3, which is to establish a maximum amount of establishments. And I'm here to listen to any of our other council colleagues, what they think too.
Thank you, Irma. I just had a couple of questions. So have we had any, couple questions. Have we had any smoke shops within 1,000 feet of each other? Do we, or have we?
We potentially do have tobacco shops within that proximity of each other, but as part of our research under the buffer zone option, we would be looking at that closer. We haven't done that research. We've done some research related to tobacco retailers and their proximity to a sensitive use. We focused just quickly on schools, and we did find that the range is between 350 feet, as close as 350 feet to a school, and as far as 3,400 feet. But we haven't concluded all that research.
And have we, are there any smoke shops within a close distance to any of our schools here in the city?
Yes, we have the closest in our preliminary research, and I say preliminary because we haven't done a full mapping of it, the closest we found is 350 feet, a tobacco retailer being 350 feet away from a school. But it ranges between 350 to 450, 500, 700, and like I said, up to 400 feet away.
And the smoke shops within close proximity of any of our schools, have we had any issues with those, selling to underage, to selling tobacco products to kids?
I would maybe defer over to Chief Lochner on that one.
Chief, doing a record of sting operations in that area?
Yeah, I don't know what specific location we've been to recently, but we do have a grant through the state for our tobacco grant. We'll do like minor decoys and different things like that in there, but I don't think we've had anything specifically reported lately.
Thank you, Chief. It just seems that there's already quite a bit of state regulation on this industry, and especially with the new amendments that came through January 1st of this year. So I'm not sure what we're supposed to do here. I'm conscious and sensitive to staff's time on things that need to be to be done in the city. So given that the PD does conduct sting operations, and again, we have quite a bit. It seems like we have quite a bit of state regulation on this already. I'm not sure if we need to do anything.
Any other comments or questions? There is a motion on the floor. At this point, would you care to second? If not, I will second the motion by Councilmember.
I would like to just make comment
Ortiz.
on my comments.
Yes.
This recommendation, is it for standalone stores for a permit? Gas stations would not be required, liquor stores would not be required? So are we looking at just the standalone stores?
Yes, thank you for that question. The report focuses on stores that are only tobacco and tobacco products. So not gas stations, not pharmacies or anything of that nature.
So yeah, gas stations can do the regular, they can sell the tobacco products as well, and not be regulated. So it's kind of like a different level. My next question might be then for Chief Lochner on the crime situation. Do we see more crime or robberies happening at a tobacco store per se? Or?
Yeah, I don't think we generally have a rise in the crimes there. We have had some in the past that weren't probably the most reputable businesses that probably were selling illegal products, but nothing in I don't think we've had any reports in the recent future of anything like that.
Mm-hmm. And I too might take my colleague's opinion as well in his state of, we have a lot of regulation on businesses. There are some businesses that should be regulated, and here we are trying to deem another permit level on a business. We've seen the number of stores that we have here. We have 16, and it's pretty much equal. I mean, District 4 has the lesser amount of stores. That's more residential, and both our districts 2 and 3 are equal with 4 stores, and yours with 5. I just think that in a regulating, we are regulating a lot in our city, and like you said, the time frame that it would be to get a permit, CPU, CUP permit. Yeah, unless it's for a buffer zone around a school, because as high schoolers walk home or it's right there, I could see a benefit to having a buffer zone around a school only, not necessarily a senior or a church, but in the sense of regulating with permits per se, I'm not in favor of more regulation for a business such as this.
So if I can ask my council colleague, you're okay with a buffer zone around our schools? Again, I came in with the intention to help our youth, and I know that, I mean, I just personally don't smoke, so I just know that these types of businesses might allow some unregulated products that are affecting our kids, and I'm going to do whatever I can to help our youth. But I'm under the impression that you're okay with, in common ground, to have a buffer zone amongst our schools.
Because those are the type of people that might be purchasing it. I think that's what the residents are trying to help prevent, is to have youth and young people have access to it easily, that it could be addicted. We're trying to establish also buffer zones perhaps in the future for other, say, bars around a school. There's a big discussion, or things of that nature. So maybe using that type of a school versus a permit for every smoke shop that comes in, I think that's excessive.
If I can have staff, what was the option? What option was that? For
That could be an option too.
No, it was already an option, right?
Option 2 is to establish buffer zones from sensitive uses, like a school, for example.
The options available, if we can put those back on the screen, I believe there were 6, there was a slide. And just to be clear, this, if we were to adopt the buffer zone recommendation, it would be for tobacco shops going forward. The 16 currently obviously would be grandfathered, is that right?
That would
Presumably,
be,
yes.
that would be part of staff's research and recommendation that we'd bring to city council, so we could get direction from council tonight on how to consider them. Options for existing tobacco retailers is they could be considered legal non-conforming, and they wouldn't have to move, or they wouldn't be required to adhere to any new ordinances if they're really close to a school. And we could create that language and bring it back to council if that's option 2 is selected.
Generally, what we do in the past is that you have an existing business would be grandfathered in. If that business were to go away for some reason, then they would lose that right, but they would be allowed there. But any new businesses would then be regulated.
Well, I have to ask, is there any exposure, any legal considerations if we tell basically a retail space they can't allow a smoke shop or someone who sells tobacco in their space?
There are lots of rules where we create buffer zones, so it's possible to do that. And I've done it in other cities. I've seen that same law in place, so it's possible.
I would just add that is a practice that is commonly implemented for uses that are considered sensitive, to implement buffer zones like this.
So there's
Then a motion.
Are you withdrawing your original motion, Councilmember Ortiz?
I am, just so.
Very well, the motion's been withdrawn. Would you like to make a new motion, Councilmember Ortiz?
A motion to approve with the option 2.
To establish buffer zones?
Buffer zones.
So your motion would be to give direction to the staff to create buffer zones. I second that motion. Any discussion on the new motion?
Just for clarification, the buffer zones, that's within, okay, schools, daycares, and other similar businesses.
Yes, that could be either brought together or separate. If the desire of the council is to only focus on schools, the buffer zone can be from retailers to schools, or it could also have a separation between 2 tobacco retailers. So if you could provide that direction, that would be helpful to staff.
But Councilmember Ortiz, so you're saying you're going with option 2 to approve, as stated right there, schools, daycares, and other tobacco retailers as the buffer zone?
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz, would you want to go as far as including residential? I would notice that adult businesses, we've created a buffer zone of 500 feet, is it? From resident, and I'm talking about adult businesses, it's a different type of business, but it's an example. Did you want to go as far as creating a buffer zone for residential locations or just schools and daycares? I'm asking because the staff needs guidance.
Is staff can provide both, or is it just when they come back?
Well, it does require an extensive amount of research to map commercial locations in proximity to residential. So if there was more precise direction, that would be helpful to staff. But the comment Mayor Trujillo is making is that we currently have a separation from a adult business to residential, a minimum of 500 feet. And for example, we have another zone that has a separation of 100 feet from live entertainment in the commercial professional zone to residential. So if the desire was to make sure that a tobacco retailer is a certain number of feet from a residential zone, then we can look at that as well. Or if the focus is merely on education or school uses as a sensitive use, then we can just focus on the schools and daycares.
I'm okay with just starting with schools and daycares.
Thank you for clarification. The motion has been made. There's a second. Any further discussion, questions, or comments on the motion as it stands?
Well, do we have, it has a distance here, 100 feet and 500 feet respectively. I would think with the schools, 500 feet isn't that far away. I mean, something like 1,000 feet away from a high school, that's like just about half a block. So I think the distance, we're trying to keep the distance away from people walking.
Is that something we discuss now, or when you bring it up to us in our next council?
You can certainly provide some input on the distance, but once we do the research, we could, to the Planning Commission, we could either consider that comment today that was made, or if we find other information that's pertinent, we can provide the Planning Commission with what the council commented tonight, and then provide our recommendation to the Planning Commission.
I'm okay with starting with 1,000 feet as a starter, and then
Very
and then
well.
move on.
100, to me, 100 is nothing. That's just one house. That's the frontage of one house, so.
So the motion stands with the recommendation that you look initially with your research at 1,000 feet as your marker. Any further discussion, questions, comments about the motion?
This includes parks too, right?
Only if you ask for it, Councilmember Ortiz. This is your chance.
Schools. Well, we were talking schools.
Parks as well.
Okay, so you're adding parks
Parks as well.
as a comment. Okay.
You know,
Do you need a modification to the motion, or is that as a comment sufficient, Director Huitron?
Just want to get clarification that the focus is schools and parks.
Education facilities and parks, it would appear,
Yes.
right?
yes.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments, suggestions?
And daycares.
And
And
daycares.
daycares.
Yes, sir. All right.
Toddlers aren't going to
I
smoke.
think we've exhausted a conversation about this. I will now call for a vote on the motion as it stands.
Just point of clarification, was there a second on that motion
I made the second.
as modified?
Yes. Thank you. Let's vote.
The motion is approved with Councilmember Frometa absent.
Thank you. At this point, I am going to recuse myself and ask that my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Sosa, continue the meeting. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor Trujillo. Have a good night. Now we discuss options for regulating eating establishments serving alcohol and providing live entertainment located within the downtown Downey specific plan area and the Downey Landing specific plan area. That the city council discuss options to regulate eating establishments serving alcohol and providing live entertainment in the downtown Downey specific plan area, provide direction to staff on which options to research further and bring back for consideration. City Manager Bradley, is there a staff report on item number 11?
We'll continue to have Ms. Huitron give that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Sosa. Due to recent concerns voiced by the City Council, staff is providing potential options for regulating eating establishments serving alcohol and providing live entertainment when located in the downtown Downey specific plan and the downtown Downey specific plan and the the Downey Landing specific plan. It's late. The intent of this report is to introduce the topic for discussion, and staff is seeking the City Council's direction on which option or options to research further and bring back for further discussion. The Downtown Downey specific plan was created to guide the development of the approximate area of 131 acres in the downtown Downey. It was adopted in September of 2010, and similarly, the Downey Landing specific plan was adopted in 2011 and guides the development of approximately 154 acres. Both of the specific plans currently allow eating establishments with alcohol service by right, meaning that the public hearing before a planning commission and site-specific conditions of approval are not required, such that a security plan or operational standards with the CUP are not required. The adoption of the specific plans were adopted as to provide flexibility for land uses such that a CUP is not required. And the idea behind that was that the city would attract businesses to locate it in these two specific plan areas. However, the downtown Downey, actually both specific plans do require a CUP when an establishment provides live entertainment, which often results in the development of conditions of approval. A little bit of more background on the security and patrols related to the downtown Downey area. The city has recently had to dedicate additional staff and security to proactively monitor eating establishments that serve alcohol and provide live entertainment into the late night hours. For example, the city has provided or added 2 additional security officers during the late night operating hours of businesses, with a total of 4 security officers now patrolling the area on Thursdays from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. and on Fridays through Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. In addition, the city extended the route to include the southern boundary of the downtown Downey specific plan, which is Firestone Boulevard. The city has also explored the use of noise monitoring services to potentially augment the code enforcement services due to the high number of complaints relating to noise. In addition, the Downey Police Department has added additional foot patrols to the downtown Downey area during the late night hours, and the additional monitoring and enforcement is taking place especially on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturday evenings from about 9:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. Additionally, the police department is exploring the use of flock cameras in the area to assist as a crime deterrent, as well as to monitor the activity in the area. And staff will be returning at a future meeting regarding an update on the use of flock cameras and authorization to deploy them in the downtown area. Since January of 2022, the Downey Police Department has responded to a total of 828 calls for service at 18 eating establishments that provide alcohol service and within both specific plans. This table provides a breakdown of the types of calls for service in the downtown Downey area. Over the 22-month period, there were 585 calls for service, and in the Downey Landing specific plan, there were 243 calls for service over that same 22-month period. This slide provides a brief overview of the benefits of the city's conditional use permit process. The CUP process is a process that goes before the Planning Commission with a public hearing and provides notice to residents that are within 500-foot radius of the subject location. And typically, the CUP is a process where staff can vet the land use, look at the operational requirements of the business, look at the operator's business plan and how they intend to manage the business, and develop appropriate conditions of approval to ensure that there's no adverse impacts to adjacent businesses or to adjacent areas around the subject property. The CUP process through the Downey Municipal Code provides ability for the city to monitor and enforce and even revoke a permit subject to specific processes. With relation to future eating establishments providing alcohol service in these 2 areas, one option would be to require a conditional use permit for all ABC licenses when a business is intending to establish an eating establishment and then providing alcohol service. It should be noted that in both specific plans, if a business is not providing food as part of their service, then they are subject to a CUP, since that type of business is considered what's called in the ABC world a public premise, and in our world it's called a nightclub or a lounge. So a nightclub and a lounge, a public premise alcohol license is very different from an eating establishment. So if a business in the potential option is for an eating establishment that provides alcohol service, that we would amend the specific plans to require a CUP, which, as I mentioned earlier, would provide for specific conditions tailored to that site to potentially mitigate or prevent any adverse impacts related to noise or operations of the business. Option 2 is to continue the current process where, again, there's no CUP that's required. There are typically 2 types of licenses that are associated with eating establishments, and that's, again, the option 2 is what we call the by right, since no CUP is required. The 2 typical licenses are type 41, which is the sale of beer and wine with an eating establishment, and a type 47 that adds the distilled spirits as part of their license. It should be noted that other areas of the city do require CUP when a business eating establishment is intending to serve alcohol. Other parts of the city outside of these 2 specific plan areas do require the business to obtain a conditional use permit. In addition, a conditional use permit is also required for any type of live entertainment citywide. So again, the no CUP is only for the sale of and the service of alcohol. With regard to options for regulating existing eating establishments providing alcohol service, option number 1 is to require all current establishments that they would also be required to obtain the conditional use permit. So basically, this means that a business would have a certain amount of time that would be decided upon as part of the ordinance preparation and approval process. And an example provided here on this slide is perhaps giving a business 2 years to come into compliance, which means they would have that time period to apply for a conditional use permit and obtain the approval. And again, one of the potential benefits of that is that there would be specific conditions of approval tailored for that business through the conditional use permit process. And there would also be notification to adjacent businesses or property owners that are located within 500 feet of that subject location. Option number 2 is what we call a legal non-conforming land use option, which basically allows an existing business that does not have a CUP, but is required with any new ordinance, for example. So if a business does not have a CUP because they were approved pre-new code requirements, they could be allowed to continue operating as a legal non-conforming use. And the Downey Municipal Code has specific requirements already that guides how we determine what is a legal non-conforming use. And typically, a business keeps their legal non-conforming status as long as it has not ceased operating for more than 180 days. And again, that's a very typical way of defining what a legal non-conforming use in the land use world. With regard to eating establishments that provide live entertainment, as I mentioned, both specific plans do require a CUP for all businesses citywide, and specifically that does apply in both specific plans. No changes are recommended to this requirement since a CUP process, in staff's opinion, is the most appropriate way for evaluating impacts related to noise, for example, or activities related to live entertainment. Another option is to direct staff to prepare specific options related to operational regulations pertaining to alcohol service and live entertainment when they're provided in conjunction with the eating establishment. Staff could be looking at standard conditions or operating guidelines related to hours of operation, lighting, security measures, sound attenuation, noise monitoring services, just to name a few. Just a little bit of background about recent efforts we've undertaken as various departments have come together. The police department, the community development, code enforcement division, the planning division, and the building division have gone out to various businesses throughout the city to conduct impromptu surprise inspections at various locations throughout the city, including several in the downtown Downey area and the Downey landing specific plans. And the idea behind those inspections is to provide, again, just a raw way of looking at a business, how they're operating, to be able to have follow-up meetings with the business owners so we can guide them on how maybe to improve or change their practices or make them aware of any types of requirements related to the security plans that they have approved with the city. And again, this is coupled with looking at best practices for these types of businesses throughout the city. The timeline for amending two specific plans, and given the scope of the options provided tonight, staff anticipates that it would take 12 months to prepare and process specific plan amendments if the option was to require CUPs for any new establishments or existing establishments in those two specific plan areas. During the amendment process, businesses of eating establishments that wish to serve alcohol would not be subject to a CUP requirement, since that is what the existing specific plan zoning regulations allow them to do. Staff's recommendation tonight is to continue to regulate eating establishment, for City Council to discuss options to regulate eating establishments serving alcohol and provide staff direction on which options you would like us to research and bring back for further consideration. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Irma. Do any council members have any questions or comments on this item?
Yes, I'll give you my comments. And this came to fruition because of the many residents that are talking about the number of bars and alcohol establishments in the downtown Downey area. And of course, in light of some of the recent things that have happened, we see the police calls. We see also that we are staffing our police that could be patrolling our streets. We're staffing 4 officers that are patrolling in the area. So I feel that we, the council, need to respond to our residents with something. Something that would be working, maybe moving forward so that we can have some control. Right now, not having a CUP for some of these businesses doesn't allow us to, in a sense, check who's coming in, what type of businesses they are, regulate them in the sense. I reviewed this report in detail, and I just wanted to read one of the things that stuck out in my mind. One of the key community benefits of a CUP is that in granting a CUP, the Planning Commission may establish conditions that the Commission may consider necessary to ensure that any negative impacts related to a business service of alcohol do not impact adjacent properties, or so that it is not detrimental to the welfare of the community. And that's what this is trying to give guidance and regulations for. And I feel that we need to be taking some action on here. The permit fee of $3,700 here for a CUP process isn't outrageous for a business, but at least it gives us, the city or the Planning Commission, again, some more control of what's going in, what we want to do in the future.
I do have a question. So in regards to CUPs, is there any business in the downtown area that has not come before the Planning Commission for any conditional use permit?
Yes, there are various businesses in the downtown Downey area that serve alcohol and don't have a CUP. In preparation for tonight's item, we did do some research, and actually even a little more research today in the past few days since issuing the report. We have about, in the downtown area, we have various businesses that obtain a CUP before the specific plan was adopted, and that's about 5. We have about 4 that are permitted, what I called by right, which means that they came in under the specific plan and were not required to obtain a CUP. And then we have about another 12 that serve alcohol that don't have a CUP that are eating establishments.
But they're eating establishments, so they don't provide any, because to my understanding, there's their live entertainment CUP and then their entertainment CUP. So these eating establishments did not have any TV, DJ, or any of that?
The live entertainment CUPs can include a DJ. That's defined as live entertainment. So a business with live entertainment would be required to obtain a CUP. And we have several businesses in both areas that have a combination of didn't need a CUP because they came under the specific plan, but they do have a CUP for live entertainment. Am I answering your question?
Yeah. So they came in for a CUP, but that's my question. So when you come before the Planning Commission, you're required, we can still regulate these types of businesses for this live entertainment issue, right? So if they have a DJ
correct.
or they want TVs, they still have to come before the Planning Commission.
For live entertainment like a DJ, yes. If they just had only TVs, they would be subject to an administrative permit. That's called, typically we refer to it as an administrative police permit, and that does not require a hearing or planning commission review. It is reviewed administratively, so that would be only for a business that only had TVs. If they had TVs and a DJ, they would be subject to the conditional use permit before the planning commission. And typically, most businesses that come in with live entertainment need both permits, the administrative police permit and also the CUP before the planning commission. So to answer your question, yes, we do have the ability to regulate businesses that provide live entertainment or TVs in another way that's not a CUP for alcohol.
And these numbers that you provided that were on our agenda, or these are specific, because downtown Downey is pretty massive. It's a big area. Are we specifically, these numbers are specifically for Downey Avenue where there's all these restaurants and bars are at, or it's other establishments too? These police calls for service, is it just for the Downey Avenue? And that same question falls for the Downey Landing. Are those calls for service just specifically for restaurant and bars, or does that include other establishments like stores, Ross, when they call for
It's
SLRs?
focused, sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I can answer your question. The data was focused on a sample of eating establishments that provide alcohol service and that would also provide live entertainment. It was a sample is of total of 18, 15, and 3 at the Downey Landing. It's not inclusive of all businesses that serve alcohol or all eating establishments that serve live entertainment. And I think that's part of staff's consideration too, of continuing with the research, because we're also curious about what is the best way to regulate this types of business, thus the options. But to provide a little bit more insight with recent data that we were looking at the last couple of days, which is very extensive Excel spreadsheets, we did find that businesses that do not have a CUP and serve alcohol, some of those businesses are not generating calls for service. So just the mere association of an eating establishment with alcohol, doesn't necessarily, in our calls for service, generate police calls for service. It's not, some of those calls for service are typically associated with those that provide live entertainment.
The live entertainment part, which we still require them.
Correct.
For live entertainment, correct. And another thing I found interesting in our analysis is that since January of 2022, we've received 828 calls for service, And so that's about, like, since January 22, that's 100, I did my math, 802 days. So we're expecting one call for service, police service per establishment.
We didn't look at it that way. I didn't do the math. I'm sorry. I didn't look at daily, but I would trust that if we divided up the number of days, that would probably be
Or like
the
an
call for
average of
service.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, that concludes my questions. I want to see.
Thank
other
you.
council-
Thank you, council members. And again, thank you, Irma. That comment or the fact that the establishments that are serving alcohol with no CUPs, there's not a whole lot of calls. I can't quote you exactly. I don't have your statement written down, but it's very telling. And I think fees for CUP can be pretty excessive for some of these businesses. And we can look at that a very unfortunate incident that happened at Mambo Grill. But since then, we've had increased foot patrol. We've had discussion of the flock security cameras through PD, the upgrade to the parking structure. I think it's, again, we want our businesses to thrive in the downtown area, and I think this is, I would make a motion to table this option. It's a good option to have later on down the line if it's necessary, but I'd be in favor of just tabling this whole matter.
And if I can touch on a little bit more what you're saying, Councilman Hector, I too agree that I first want to see how everything gets played out, the improvements that we're adding, our foot patrol, our security measures, how the parking structure gets improved, how these measures really help. I do agree. These small fees do take a toll on small business owners, and I can speak for myself. It's not easy. So I just think that we can table this, see how all these security measures work, and then come back again if something else does occur, and we'll see.
I think you make a good point that we have put in place different elements for some of these areas that have been having some problems. But I think in maybe moving forward with new businesses, maybe they should be regulated like the rest of some of these businesses are doing. The ones that are existing now. It's unfortunate that the patrons are causing the problem. It's not the owners of the businesses. And we have to regulate the patrons. But for us to at least show that our residents that we're trying to regulate and solve the problem that's going now, we still have an option if we can come back, if things are happening, that we could put something like this into effect with having a CUP for incoming businesses that allow us to regulate and regulate who's coming in, do a little bit of vetting. We've already experienced sometimes things that are not right for our community. So I would be willing to, go with my colleagues in a sense, to table this for now. We've received a lot of good information. CUPs are needed for entertainment, and the DJs and TVs and such like that, that's the element that brings a lot of this, of the problems, I think, for late at night that we are seeing right now. So I don't want to leave this, but maybe you brought up a good point, Councilman Ortiz, to see if the resolutions that we're putting in place with the officers and cameras and things of that nature might help solve some of those issues that we're having and the concerns. But for the future, maybe we can take a look at having establishments be in conforming with the CUP like all the other restaurants. I see that direction as well.
So I don't know if, I think you say a motion and I make a second.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Pemberton. So just to clarify, I make a motion that we table this whole matter.
And second it.
All right, please vote. Thank you, Irma.
That's a
Thank you,
long
Irma.
report. Thank you very much.
The motion is approved with Mayor Trujillo and Councilmember Frometa absent.
Now, the City Council meeting will now adjourn in the memory of Officer Cody Allen of the Missouri Independence Police Department, who was fatally shot while responding to the shooting of civil process server Drexel Mack. Trooper Christopher M. Gadd of the Washington State Patrol, who was struck and killed by vehicle while conducting DUI enforcement patrols. And Kathy Orndorff, a longtime Downey resident and volunteer. A moment of silence. This meeting is now adjourned. The time is 9:10 p.m.